we got a live stream. What we're going to cover today is it looks like Trump is talking the same funny way he does about the deals all the time, which I think is just done to lower oil prices. Oh, we got a deal. It looks good. We got a deal. We don't, we'll cover that. It's a memorandum of understanding, and it's not certain that he actually reached an agreement with Iran. And if he did reach an agreement, it's something running for 30, 60 to 60 days when they're allegedly going to make a more permanent deal. So this whole thing is very iffy, at best. Okay, at best. And then we're gonna go through that, some other current events, and we're gonna go through some Bible prophecy on the two witnesses and remission of sins and the daughter of Babylon and the timing of redemption with the daughter of Babylon and stuff like that. Okay? So what I'm gonna do now is go into the live stream and make sure we got a live stream running good, hot and steady, whatever we want to call it, straight and steady, I don't know. That's how they describe torpedoes running. All right. That's how they describe torpedoes running. All right, we got sound and picture. Let me crank down the sound so I don't get echoes. We've got our moderators or a moderator. Okay. I'm going to put a fast post up in the live stream, which is going to be fast. I mean, seconds, not any big deal. Almost finished. Let's see if it looks good. Looks good. No typos that I'm picking up. And let me pin this up. Come on, cooperate. And it's pinned. If you guys want to help the channel, there's a few things you could do. One is to subscribe. Two is to just post anything up in the chat. I mean, keep it nice, but just put anything up in there, and that helps. And hitting the thumbs up helps. So that takes you seconds, and it's a nice gesture. Okay. Being a Bible-believing site, I'm going to do some praise, and I have no control over people joining in or not joining in. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so I guess the place to start is with what happened with Trump and Iran, and it's all up in the air. I mean, it was within the last hour or so. And I'll tell you what is going on, and we'll talk about it. It's not good for Israel. Uh, he stated that the agreement, this memorandum of understanding, is largely negotiated, not finalized. Officials on both sides emphasized it is currently a finalized framework, but I've heard the Iranians talk differently. So we don't know yet. Okay, how many times have we heard things like this before? 10, 8. You know, it's standard operating procedure for Trump. I haven't seen the Iranians step out and say, well, we've reached a deal with the Americans. It's signed, sealed, and delivered. We haven't heard that. They're saying it's awaiting final signatures. Okay, and then Trump saying it's mostly done. And the thing is, what actually does this thing say? And I'll try to give you the drift of it, okay? None of us have seen an official piece of paper signed by them. Axios hasn't, New York Times, the Post. Nobody's seen this other than the governments, and I don't believe it's actually signed by both parties. So it's very iffy what it's really going to say. So these are the points that are supposed to be dealt with. The Straits of Hormuz and transit fees. The draft requires the crucial waterway to be fully reopened to commercial shipping. Iran has agreed to drop its desire to charge tolls and control who can go through the Straits of Hormuz, and thus the Persian Gulf, and will be responsible for clearing the naval mines. If they, well, I don't know, there might only be 10 naval mines, but there are some naval mines. Sanction release. They're not, the U.S. is not going to give any war reparations money to Iran. That's not happening, okay? What they are going to do, according to what we're hearing, which is, again, iffy. That's a fighter jet, ours. It's sounds F-35-ish to me. Could be F-16. The jet's low, but not fast. Probably an F-16. He doesn't want to be a target on some nearby country's radar. Okay. So the concessions mean the U.S. is going to remove their naval blockade, and they're going to waive certain sanctions on Iran, enabling them to sell oil on the global market. Furthermore, the deal reportedly facilitates the unfreezing of roughly 25 billion of Iranian assets currently held in foreign banks. I believe that this will not be all at once. Not at onset, anyway. I believe it's said that they're going to have to work towards this, and it may be piece by piece. It may be in 2 or 3 pieces. I'm not sure yet. Nobody's seen the actual signed document because there may not be in existence the document signed by both parties. It also includes uh, a Lebanese a ceasefire with Lebanon. So as long as there's a ceasefire with Iran, there's a ceasefire in Lebanon. They're talking about a 60-day nuclear window. So it's basically dealing with a 30 to 60-day negotiating window to secure comprehensive agreements for a long term regarding Iran's nuclear and the stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Um, the strategy behind this MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, is to immediately defuse the war and stabilize global energy markets. In other words, keep the prices. They're not going to get them down to $60 for a while, but they might get them to 75, 80 even, maybe 70. It's they just want to bring it down. Shifting the focus entirely to diplomatic negotiations and the remaining security and nuclear demand. All right. So, what is wrong with this picture is plenty. Number one, it may be nothing more than Trump coming out with this, it's almost done, to get the oil prices to not rise, okay? And we've seen this numerous times, okay? This is nothing new. This is old hat with Trump and Iran. Standard, we've seen it multiple times. So it doesn't mean we have a deal. If Trump says he has a deal, to me, it doesn't mean anything unless we hear the Iranians say we have reached a deal at the same time, in the same period of time, within 3 or 4 hours of each other. If they both say it at the same time, then I would say it's true. This could be just nothing more than Trump's negotiations, period. Remember that, okay? The Donald Trump Jr., the kid of Trump's, married a person using the name Bettina Anderson, and Trump, they got married in Palm Beach, right near Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate, and Trump didn't go to the affair. The situation is likely due to Iran, maybe implying they wanted to sign a deal. I don't know. He called Vance back to the White House, and it might be that Trump's telling us, oh, we got this great deal cooking, and what is really going on is Trump's getting ready to bomb them. Then he just makes an announcement, no, the deal's off, it was too stupid, now we gotta bomb him and beat him into a good deal. You don't know. America's still on holiday today and tomorrow, so we don't know. That means the markets are closed. Iran had insisted they wanted to discuss the issue of sanctions and frozen funds before any agreement was signified. So they were actually imposing preconditions on Trump, softly or firmly is not clear, probably firmly. They were also insisting on compensation from Trump, but Trump, money is everything to Trump. That ain't happening. Releasing money from banks that are holding it for Iran is not anything Trump's going to have great problems with, because he can't use the money anyway, easily. You understand? So he's giving back something that he never had the use of. That he'll do. Letting him sell oil without sanctions is something else he doesn't care about. The sanctions are not tariffs to America going in the American Treasury's pocket. It's a preventative of them selling oil. So that he gives up. Money he won't give up. How's the stimulus package coming? The $2,000 Trump was saying people are going to get in the spring. We're towards the end of May. Another broken promise. Walmart shoppers are now filling their gas tanks with under 10 gallons of gas due to the higher prices. Now, this is not, hey, two people came. Walmart's looking at the averages, they're looking at the numbers, people filling up at the tank and getting how many gallons. There's always somebody that's going to take a trip. They got a 20-gallon tank. They got 14 gallons in the tank and they top it off to take the trip, okay? But that's not all the people are coming, People are probably close to empty and they're not tanking up. They're just taking a 10 gallons because it's too much money to tank up for them. You see, that's what they're coming up with. And, what scares Trump and many of the countries in the world is the oil prices going up too much increase the price of everything. Travel, food, clothing, vacations, heating oil, all your food, everything you buy, is going up, up, up. Now, the Arab states in the Middle East don't want that. They want it back the way it was, where they could have anything and everything they want to buy. They want to buy a diamond the size of a baseball, they go out and find one. They buy it. They go out and buy a Rolls Royce and rip the paint job off and put gold plating on the thing. They just do it. They don't care. Okay? And the old price level, at the $60 price level, they were rolling in the dough. They don't want to see $150, $250 price level because they're afraid, yeah, great, oil's expensive, but we're selling almost nothing. And they got to deal with Iran blowing up their oil wells. See, this deal that Trump made, he made for these rotten, stinking dictators that run the Arab oil countries. He didn't do it for Israel, and he didn't really do it for America. He did it for them. Okay? And the world in general, because if Iran blew up the oil fields, yeah, it would affect the whole world. I agree. I agree. Netanyahu, we're told, and I don't know how true it is, I don't think it's that true, because there was some phone calls with Trump. I think Netanyahu and Trump have daily phone calls, or almost daily. Uh, he wasn't in on these negotiations. In a nutshell, Trump's position, and Netanyahu's position on this is a ceasefire with Iran is a waste of time. It's just a delaying tactic. And Trump is stupid. What Trump doesn't understand, you got to remember what Trump is, okay? I talked to you about the kid that runs Saudi Arabia, the one that runs Jordan, the one that runs Kuwait, the one that runs Bahrain, the one that runs Qatar, and the one that runs UAE, and the one that runs Oman. Oman is sort of like, he's off on the side. He's sort of half friends with Iran. All right. He's very small. Oil production is small. The country is small. It's got not much of anything. All right, let's go on. These are the children and the grandchildren of the dictators that took the country, got the oil started, got the wealth started, and with tough cookies. Okay? Their kids and grandkids are soft. They grew up with their parents worth hundreds of millions of dollars many years ago, which is like being a trillionaire or something, I mean, in 1964 or so, a Rolls Royce was $16,000. A regular, they called it the Silver Cloud, the sedan, the basic model, right? Today, you're going to drop like $400,000 on a Rolls Royce, something like that. Maybe they got one for $300 or $280 or something, but that's about what you're going to spend. And compare that to $16,000. So if you had $200 or $300 million back in the '60s, you were rolling in the dough. $100 million was rolling in the dough. Okay, but if you go back to the '40s, it's even more pronounced. I don't know what a Rolls Royce was in the '40s. Probably $8,000 or $9,000 or $6,000. I don't know. It's hard to say. They were selling Duesenbergs and Accords and expensive cars during the Depression for 5, 6, 7,000, more than that even, and the movie stars and celebrities were buying these Duesenbergs and stuff, going to openings of movies and gala events and driving their Duesenberg, and people are going, people don't have a car, they're taking the bus and the subways, and they're looking at them, oh boy, I want to be like them. See, that's what Satan does. Okay? Wants you to want to be like them. You don't understand the misery they go through. Okay? The misery is super pronounced. You don't get that. Okay? But, I mean, Clark Gable was a Duesenberg character running around showing off. And what did the guy have? 5 marriages? 5 marriages. What a happy fellow, huh? These people are nuts, okay? I had a friend who lived in Beverly Hills. There was a guy I met when I was in graduate school in San Francisco from New York, and we stayed friends. I believe he passed on by now. He was a bit older than me. And he dated a few times movie stars and entertainers, and he knew about Hollywood and how they worked, and I don't know why he was drawn to these people, but these people were nuts. They were nuts, and he ran around with them, Okay, so Trump is like the kid in Saudi Arabia or the other ones. Trump's father was quite wealthy. Trump says when he was growing, he was out of school. I think he went to college or something. His father gave him $1 million to see what he could do with it. That was probably in the 60s. That was a good amount of money in the 60s. There was a TV show in the, either it could have been the early 60s or the latter 50s. I used to watch it. My parents watched it. It was called The Millionaire, I believe. There was a guy they called John Bears for Tifton. I remember it. And he had a valet or something called Mike, a secretary. And he would sit around in his mansion bored with all his beautiful stuff around him and not know what to do. And he would, I guess, had private detectives. He would find somebody that was in need, a poor person, and give them $1 million. And this guy, Mike, I think his name, would go to the person and knock on the door and explain to them that it wouldn't use the guy's name, that this rich person has given you $1 million. And then apparently what this guy did is, through private detectives, observe their life. And that's how he got his entertainment or something. It was a pretty stupid show, but $1 million back then was huge. You know, you were talking, if you're talking 1959 or something like that, a mansion in Beverly Hills was probably $250,000, maybe less. If you go back to the 30s, these big houses in Beverly Hills were $25,000, $35,000. Okay. Beverly Hills was the place they collected. So that's where they had the special covens, the Satan covens, where the Hollywood people would meet. And they would run Hollywood with the demons, of course. And, you know, this was the place to be if you were in the business and successful. If you were not in the business, you weren't going to live there. You couldn't afford it. They wanted the prices high. They didn't want regular people living there. Okay? They wanted just, you know, accomplished Satan bots living there. And that's what they had. But their houses, even in the 70s, okay, were not always mansions. Maybe the 70s they were getting into it, but in the 40s, 50s, 60s, they bought like 5-bedroom houses on a big lot, and they had a pool. And that was normally what they had, a pool in the back of the house. And you could walk up and ring their doorbell. Really. That's how most of Lucille Ball lived that way. You could walk up and ring a doorbell. They had buses people went to, and they got on the buses and they drove them around and said, this one lives here, this one lives there, this one lives here. This house used to be Clark Gable or Alfred Hitchcock or whatever, right? And they didn't walk up on the people's door, but you know, if you did walk up on the door and rang the bell, the maid or somebody, the butler or some servant would come open up the door. But it was a different time in America. People weren't, you know, worried about, you know, somebody rings the bell and then they punch the maid in the mouth. They run in and they grab the movie star and they rape her, or they, you know, sodomize them, or they, you know, and then they take them, they clean the house out, hold them for ransom, or that. It didn't go on back then. You know, it didn't. They didn't have that kind of stuff. When you get into the, probably in the 60s or 70s. In the 60s, I think maybe the latter 60s, I'm not sure when, they started a no parking ordinance in Beverly Hills. At night, you couldn't park on the street. You had to bring your car into the driveway in the house, park it in the driveway, put it in the garage or something like that. They didn't want any cars on the street because how are you going to burglarize an apartment or a house if you have to do it on foot? You know? you can't carry the loot easily, and it's how long are you going to last walking around with carrying a pillowcase at night in Beverly Hills? So I had a friend that lived there, and I used to visit, and they shut out um, the cars. During the day, they allowed it because workmen were there. I think it was at about 6 o'clock. It was over, something like that, 6 or 7 or something like that. You couldn't park on the street anymore. I can't remember the exact time. And then in the morning, it opened up. I think at about 6 or something. I don't know. And what they used to do there is, if you were drunk in the Beverly Hills, they used to BHPD, Beverly Hills Police Department. If they pulled you over, and you had a Beverly Hills address on your driver's license, they didn't give you a ticket for drunk driving. Back in those days, when you were drunk driving, you got a ticket, which was about $302 later on. And what they would do is they'd write you a ticket, and you would get bad points on your license, and they would park the car and put you in a cab, or if you were dangerous to yourself, you were so sloppy drunk, they would take you to the station, and they would keep you there, put you in a drunk tank for a couple hours, which is in case you're going to get sick. A drunk tank has like a bench. It could be aluminum optimally, and it has a plain floor with drains. Okay, so if people barf, they just hose it, you know. And it has a toilet too, a metal toilet, which I don't think had a toilet seat. You just sat on, so you could barf in the toilet and this and that. And they keep you there for a couple hours, and then they might give you a cup of coffee or 2 cups, and then somebody would come pick you up and take you home, or a cab would come, something like that, So sometimes in some jurisdictions they put you in the drunk tank till the morning, and then they let you out. But it was just really for your own safety and protection, Beverly Hills used to be the police department to work in. When I was a kid, I was in deputy sheriff in California, and that was the job of jobs. A friend of mine and me talked about working down there, but I don't think we wanted to live in LA. What was the big advantage of working down there? Well, the movie stars and the producers and the directors and the moguls in business that moved down there were always entertaining. Okay, they all wanted to hobnob with the stars and the producers and stuff like that, and they all try to get these people to come there. And a lot of the time, the way they did it was charities. The celebrities were all encouraged to support charities, and they did. Any kind of charity. They weren't very particular. You could do the Red Cross, you could do a children's hospital. They didn't care. Just so they got into doing charity work. And there was, if they did a concert for charity and the price for their concert would have been $50,000, they could treat that as a charitable contribution on their taxes. They had stuff like that going on back then. So they were always having parties, okay? And they were worried about the parties, for one thing, because the people could come in and, do a stick up or whatever. So what they did is they took a Beverly Hills policeman, they preferred a young kid without a family, and they let him move in what was usually referred to as the pool house. Sometimes they had a pool house and they had another house. Uh, they would get a double lot. They would have like 2 acres or an acre and a half or whatever, and they would build another little house there that could be used for servants or whatever, and they would give a place to live for free to the cop. It was, yeah, here, live there for free. Run the air conditioner all you want. Use the electricity. I don't care what. Yeah, they don't care. They got more money than they knew what to do with. They wouldn't care. Um, Along with that, you got hand-me-downs, depending on who you were working for. But you could get, they had a sofa they paid $11,000 for, and they get these people redecorate their living room or their dining room just for fun. So they hey, you want the sofa here? Put it in the guest house, brother. Stuff like that. They'll give you their old clothes sometimes. They replace the TV. They'll give you another TV, a stereo. They'll give you their older stereo. Different things like that they did, right? They didn't want you eating in the house with them. And they felt secure there if they had fans bothering them. Okay? They'd get you they'd call you or yell at you or something. Hey, hey, Steve, I got a problem, or Mark or whoever the guy's name is, and the cop would come out and get rid of the people. And if the people were really a problem, he'd just put the cuffs on them, call the station, they send the patrol car out, and they either take them away and release them, or they would book them, A lot of times the celebrity doesn't want them booked, and he doesn't want to testify in court that he had a fan bother him and put him in jail. That's not good. So they would just maybe like the police to take the guy a mile away, and then they just have a little chat with the guy while he's in the back seat of the patrol car from the front seat, and they say, if you come anywhere near here again, we're going to put you in the hoosegow, okay, and you're going to get charged, and you're going to go to jail, okay? So you got to get out of jail free card. Use it. Just leave. You're free to go. I'm opening the door. You go now. And, the vast majority of them would. If they were drunk, then they would just hold them until they sobered up and then tell them to leave, that kind of thing. So that was considered a really cool job by some people, but we never bothered with it. We probably would have got hired because we had, or they would have considered us anyway, because we had degrees in criminology, but it was, who wanted to live in LA? I didn't, LA is, like New York City in a way with the traffic. People get in the car in LA and they go home from work and it takes them an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half. Who wants a life like that, Now, if you live in Beverly Hills and you work in Beverly Hills Police Department, well, your commute is going to be 10 to 20 minutes, I guess, or less, so you don't have a big problem. But, it was a heavily satanic police department back then. I wasn't a believer. I wasn't walking with the Lord. I didn't know that. But it's a heavily, to protect them, and when they kick the bucket, they don't want their secrets revealed or their dead bodies, There's a lot of secrets being kept down there with these places, It was a whole different era. Now it's so bad in Beverly Hills that people are leaving. Stallone left a lot of them, moved away. It got to the point where they couldn't walk out of the house safely. They didn't feel safe anymore in the street. they had to bring bodyguards. So you want to go out to eat, you had to bring your bodyguard. So the restaurant, what do you do with the bodyguard? I mean, ideally, the bodyguard sits at his own table and watches you, but these restaurants weren't going to let that happen. They didn't have that many tables. So the bodyguard just stays outside in the front of the restaurant with the other bodyguards. And they watch everybody going in to make sure everybody going in has a reservation and acts and walks and talks and looks like they belong there. If somebody tries to strong arm their way into the restaurant, well, there might be 2, 3, 4 bodyguards there. They're going to all grab the guy because they don't know whose principle is going to be affected, you know. So, you know, it gets bad. They say you can't go out with any jewelry or this and that. So they can't wear their jewelry. They can't wear expensive watches. And, you know, yet I see videos of people in Beverly Hills and they're all driving these. Some of these cars are more than $1 million, Bugattis and stuff like that, but very expensive sport cars. It seems to be cliche to buy a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or an Aston Martin or something like that to run around the Beverly Hills with a car that goes 200 miles an hour, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and costs a fortune. And drive it around in a city street with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. What's up with that, right? It's pretty stupid, but that's what the trend is down there. Idiotic, really. And why don't they get these cars carjacked? Because you can't sell it. All right, shut up! Because you can't sell the car. Who's going to buy the car? I got to bring the door down. I got to prop up the door. Just give me a second. All right, let's turn it off. Okay? Yeah, that's right. Let's go away and turn it off. Okay? I'll bring her in. You stay here and don't join the bar. Go home. Can you go home or are you locked out? All right, I'll open it. You stop. You got locked out? All right, I'll fix it. Okay, leave me alone. Come on, knock it off. Sorry about that. So anyway, back to Trump. Trump is doing the same stuff that Jimmy Carter was doing, and Biden and Bush and all of them. Don't let anybody win the wars. Keeping us from finishing off Hezbollah is very important to Iran because they could attack Israel without getting attacked themselves by just having Hezbollah do it. And they're getting, they lost Hamas, and now Trump is allowing them to save Hezbollah. Which is Satan. Let's keep Hezbollah alive and they'll stop Israel the next time, maybe. It's crazy, you know. And he's keeping Iran alive. Now, that's a big mistake for Trump. And it's a big mistake for Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. I never heard Jordan say he wanted to keep Iran alive. No, he never said that. The others said it. And they are scared. They're afraid to fight. They're just babies, you know. They're just immature people that grew up extremely well. Not only, okay, people in America grew up wealthy, but they couldn't go out on the street and murder people. They couldn't grab women off the street and rape them. They couldn't do whatever the heck they wanted. Now, in these Arab countries, these leaders do whatever the heck they wanted. They're dictators. They're not subject to the laws of their country. They do whatever they want. And they have vast sums of wealth. These are deranged kids. And they grew up in a nation under Sharia law with you know, concealing that they're Satan bots and everything. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy. And they're not well people. They're very confused, bewildered children of confused, bewildered children. You know, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're scared. And they got fear and greed as their motives. So they fear Iran, and they got greed, so they run to Trump and they say, you know, let's keep it going, let's keep it going. We like living in the lap of luxury and that kind of thing. You know, the fact that a lot of them are living in countries where it hits 120 degrees a lot of days of the year is, you know, not a lot of fun. I mean, you can't go out at 120. I think you can go out maybe 105, 106, and it's real uncomfortable then, but you could go out, you know, but at 120, I don't think you want to go out. So a lot of people just clear the streets when it's that hot, you know, in these countries. They just go and sit in the air conditioning. So they'll have a house, and you know, you have a house in America or Europe, you got one air conditioner. They'll have four. Okay, be a big house. They'll have four air conditioners so they can cool all the house. Really, you know, if you had your house and it gets hot, like in Florida, let's say it hits 99 degrees, your house is really going to be about 20 degrees cooler than the outside, okay? But let's say you've been running the air conditioning for 2 weeks all the time. Well, instead of dropping from 99 to 79, you might drop from 99 to 75, okay? So it'd be a little bit in the house, but since there's no humidity in the house, it'd be comfortable, but you might want to leave a fan on in the heat of the day just to keep the air moving and make it cooler, right? Okay. But if you had a second air conditioner in your house, you had a second one, right? What would happen is you would get it down probably to 70 degrees, you know. So they just put enough air conditioners in there where they get the temperature as cool as they want it. Remember, they're walking around publicly wearing these big robe things, right? They probably cost $3,000 or $4,000. I don't know what kind of fabric they put in those things, but that's what they're wearing. Plus, they got undergarments. You know, now when they're on their own, they might walk around dressed like I am. You know, with short Levi's and a T-shirt. You know, I don't know. So they, you know, I mean, if you took your regular, let's say you had a regular house of 2,500 square feet or something like that, and you put 3 air conditioners in, you know, you put one in blowing for one side of the house and put one for another side of the house, and then you just put one in general to you know, you can bring your temperature down to 65 degrees when it's 100 outside. You know, you just keep adding air conditioners in, you know. I used to go to the movie theaters as a kid in the Bronx. They had an air conditioner. Man, the thing was the size of like a room of a house, you know. And it used to, when you walk by on the sidewalk, you'd get hit with water droplets from the thing pulling, you know, humidity out of the air. And the movie theaters had, you know, a ceiling that went up 20 feet, 30 feet, and it was a high ceiling. And this air conditioner was huge. And if they were going to start the matinee at 1 o'clock, they'd turn the thing on at 12 probably. So by the time you walked in, I mean, it didn't matter what was going on outside. It was freezing in that theater. And people would go wear a sweater in there, you know, it was freezing. The kids wouldn't, but the adults would. They kept it real cold. The idea was in the summer, in the evening, after the people ate, they, you know, didn't have an air conditioning in their house, so they went to the movies. And they had double pictures back then. You saw 2 movies. They had an intermission between the movies, usually 15 minutes, for people to buy stuff to eat, go have a smoke outside or inside or whatever, and go to the bathroom, and then they'd start it up again. And so you'd be in there a good 3 hours. As you went in at 7, you got out at 10. So by the time you got out, the heat cooled off and you went home. So they broke it up. People would just go, instead of watching TV in the house, they go to the movies, you know. But they had 2 pictures, that's what. And then sometimes on the weekends in the matinees for the kids, they'd have 3 pictures. So the kid could go stay there for the whole afternoon. So, you know, the mother would give the kid money for popcorn, soda, or a hot dog and stuff like that. And the kid would be there for the afternoon, right? And they could do that when it was cold and snowing outside, or when it was hot, or when it was raining. It was a common thing. It used to cost about a quarter in my day when I was a kid. It was about 25 cents to go see the movie. And it was always 2 pictures. I mean, it was all the time when I was a kid. It was 2 pictures. You had a main attraction, and then you had a secondary motion picture that they had. You know, some people just went for the main attraction, the same admission. What did the adults pay? They paid in the evening like $1, sometimes $1.25 for a ticket. So. The Hezbollah thing that Trump's doing is terrible, because Hezbollah is going to rebuild. So all the efforts that we made in the past months to destroy their weapons and their infrastructure are now, we're giving them a chance to rebuild, refortify, and attack us again the next time. That's what Trump's doing to us. Do you understand that? Okay. You need to understand that. That's not nice, but he's doing it. Okay? It'd be one thing if he made a peace deal with Iran, but why is he interfering with us and Hezbollah? Hezbollah is, you know, so Trump doesn't seem to care about making sure Iran stops supporting their proxies. Okay? Why the Houthis didn't get into war with us, I don't know. I think they were afraid that America would get in with Israel, and then it would be curtains for them. Now, I've told you that the destruction of Elam, Iran, is going to be postponed. I've mentioned this ever since it started. It can happen, and this is just another instance. Let's assume it does happen. Okay, they do make a deal. They haven't, but let's say they do. They make a 30 to 60 day memorandum of understanding. Does that mean Iran is going to give up their nuclear material, let their nuclear facilities be destroyed. Just that alone, no. Is Iran going to agree to restricting or limiting their ballistic missiles? No. Are they going to agree to not keep supporting and arming and training Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis and their militias? No. You're dealing with a country that has rallies where the president, the head of the nation, speak, right? The Khomeini and the leaders speak to the people, and the people start chanting, "Death to America, death to Israel." This is how ignorant Trump is of the reality of the situation. He is one of these rich kids, like the king or prince of Saudi Arabia and the UAE and all that. He doesn't know what he's doing, okay? They are doing nothing but buying time to fortify. Now that what do I mean? They're going to make their missile cities, their missiles built into the side of mountains, built underground, more fortified than they ever were, because they learned how America and Israel were attacking them. The doors, the entrances, the doors where the missiles would shoot out from that open up and close, and the mobile missile launches. So they're fortifying better to make it more impossible for Israel and Iran and America to damage their missile launch capability. Their Navy is gone, okay? Can they rebuild and get more Navy ships? Yeah, with oil revenue, they'll do it, but that takes time. Can they buy old used ships from Russia and China? And yeah. Maybe from other countries too, they can do that. So they'll try doing that. They want aircraft desperately. They want, if they could get fifth generation fighter jets, but I don't think they can. I think they could get 4.5, which is some degree of stealthiness, but not much. But, to make a meaningful dent in it, they need to have 25 or 40 of them. And that's not such a simple thing to do. Then they have to have underground hangars, which they probably have. They have to train, if they're going to have 40 planes, they got to train at least 3 pilots on a plane. So that's, 120 pilots. And then they got to probably have 200 maintenance guys and all kinds of parts. And it's a big thing. It's not going to happen overnight, but they can try for it. They might also try to build long-range bombers, but the problem with a long-range bomber is it's usually not stealth. If it's a B-1, B-2 belonging to America, yeah, it's stealth. But if it's not, then it's just a regular plane that can be taken down very easily by a stealth jet, by missiles, and lots of things. So they don't really put a lot of time and energy into those things. And Iran will definitely be able to get missiles up from about 1,200 mile distance. They might be able to get it up more now, but I imagine they're going to be able to get up to 1,800, 2,000 miles, which is going to give them access to many countries in Europe, and their leverage against the world is going to be greatly enhanced, because the Europeans are cowards and they're not going to want to fight Iran and have missiles land in their cities. So Trump is making a huge blunder if he goes through with this. Now remember, he may not go through with it. It might just be that he's barking at the moon to get the gasoline prices down, to keep them down, and he's been using this trick for a long time. There was a shooting near the White House. Some character was shooting a young guy at Secret Service agents outside the White House. They killed the guy, and a bystander was shot and died. Um, I don't know who killed the bystander, but it if it was the shooter, they would have said so. So it sounds like the Secret Service agent did. Doom and gloom on that Secret Service agent. He'll be patrolling the grizzly bears in Alaska, or if he's a hunter and likes being in Alaska, then they'll put him in the Florida Keys. He can protect the fish or something. Um, a lot of guys get in these federal agencies and they love hunting and fishing, so they go to Wyoming or Idaho or something like that. They're really happy. Cost of living is low, and if you are an FBI agent and you want to go in the woods and bag yourself a deer or a moose off season, you think anything's going to happen to you? They'll check with the agency that enforces the hunting before they go out, and then they'll ask them for permission. And will they get it? Probably. They could do that with fishing too. They also could have a boss that tells them if they do something like this, they're going to get fired. So it just depends on who their boss is, and what's going on. So if you want to help the channel, which some of you probably don't want to, but if you'd like to, if you hit the like button, it helps us. If you just put anything up in the chat, anything, just say anything. Be nice, of course, that helps. Or when it becomes a video, if you put a comment up, it also helps us too. Okay? But I don't think you can do comments right now, but you can put them in the chat, and you could hit the thumbs up, the like button. Okay? So back to John 22. We're going to switch to Bible now. That's really what's going on in the news. The rest of the stuff in the news is noise. Hey, let's spend a quick moment here checking. I'll check the news very quickly and see if anything finalized. But it's the middle of the night in America, so I don't think Trump would be doing much about this in the middle of the night, but you never know. I'll pick it up if anything finalized. Maybe they are working in the night because it's daytime in Iran, so maybe. What I'm getting, and I don't know how true it is that Iran fully rejected this thing that Trump says is almost close to a deal or close to a deal. But I don't know that. I do know that the White House and all the official sources are saying that they have not signed the deal with Iran yet. All right. We'll take a quick poke around here and see if we got any news that popped up that a deal was reached. That's what I'm looking to do. So far, I'm finding nothing. The latest I'm seeing again is final details are being discussed. Uh, yeah, that's not it. Okay, final details being discussed is not it. Let me take a quick look around. I'll hit my social media real quick. If anything did happen, we'll find it in a moment. Trump is praising the Secret Service. I'm not seeing anything yet, but I'm still hunting. Um, okay, I'm gonna check one or two other quick places. I'm not seeing any signed deal come up yet. Oh, I gotta check in some of the foreign language stuff. Netanyahu expresses concern about additional aspects of the agreement, but presented his position respectfully and accepted the matters submissively. Said, yeah, he just bowed down to Trump. Yeah, we know he does that. We still don't know if there anything did happen. There's no real sign of anything that did happen. I'm just almost finished here. So far, no signs of any deal. One last place. Oh, this thing is such a pain in the neck to use this thing. Okay. The New York Post and the New York Times is saying Iran agreed to give up uranium enrichment, but they're often incorrect. They're referring to it as an emerging agreement that has yet to be. Oh, this thing is so hard to use with the side there. Yeah, no, they're saying it's not signed, and the Telegram thing. It's such problem with the programming. When you get to the bottom of the posts on a channel, if you go too far down, it moves you to the next channel, which you don't want to go to, and you can't read the post. It's such stupid programming. They got volunteers programming, which are kids. They got nothing better to do. The Iranian news agency Fars, that's their official one, denies that the situation in Hormuz will return to its previous state. And that means go back to Iran not controlling it. That doesn't seem okay. After the announcement of the agreement, a period of negotiations is expected to begin, discussing the nuclear issue. Yeah, essential details are still missing. Yeah, there's no agreement to look at the details on because it does nothing signed. Trump says the agreement's been formulated for the most part. We've heard this before. Well, I don't have any indication that there's a deal that's been signed yet. So we'll see what happens. Now is a good time to check oil prices. Let's see how Trump impacted oil prices. Go to oilprice.com. Yep, he did a little bit of good, not very much. I think the oil buyers are finished with Trump and his rumors. The WTI or American crude is 96.60 and the Brent is 103. So that's not exactly low. So they're not paying much attention to Trump anymore. But again, it's the weekend, so things aren't going to move much. So we'll see. Let's check the gold, see what it's doing. Probably nothing, sitting where it was, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 45.08 on the gold, 75.39 on the silver. It's just hanging in there, it's not changing. So we'll see if Trump's playing a ruse or if it's really a deal. And, you know, all this is going to do is let Hezbollah and Iran rebuild. They're never going to agree to the terms Trump wants. And it's the stupidest thing I heard. Trump is just hoping that the thing just drags on as a ceasefire. And I don't know why. Because Iran is definitely going to come back. Now, the next time, if there is a next time, Iran is going to be able to, I'm sure they're going to not only attack Europe, but they're going to find a way to attack America. Not with sleeper agents. They'll get something better than that. They'll, you know, what it'll be is they'll put ships, merchant marine ships they can convert in a month or two to handle drones and missiles, and they'll get them near America, and they'll launch. That's what they'll do. And if they're fortified and nobody can stop their missile cities, and they got thousands and thousands of missiles, they think they could attack these other countries and then negotiate their way back into another ceasefire. After damaging the countries. If Trump does let them continue selling their oil again, they're going to get very rich again quick, and it's going to be terrible. So Trump is actually behaving stupidly, and like I said, he's got at least one fear of getting rung up the flagpole for not stopping the war in 60 days. He's afraid of that. I think he's afraid of getting impeached for that, you know. Okay, now we'll switch to Bible, okay? So the John 20:23, which says, whosoever sins you remit, they are remitted unto them. And whosoever sins you retain, they are retained. Okay, so what does that mean? I mean, it's such a powerful thing. So you can, or two or more can agree to have somebody's sins lifted from them. And that is, let's look at this in the Hebrew, make sure we got this right, okay? The Hebrew Bible. Guys, well, this is running. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna make a cup of coffee, instant coffee. It'll be quick, and I'll be right in while this is running. I'll be right back. Oh, it wasn't too long. So what does it do? I mean, if you tell, if you want to put the sins on somebody, well, keep them on them. Let's see. All right. The translation from Salkinson's Hebrew to the English based on Strong's Concordance. That's how I had AI translate it, using Strong's Concordance lexicon to do it, or the dictionary, whatever you want to call it. And it shall be whomever you forgive their sins, it is forgiven them. And whomever you hold guilty, they are held guilty. So that's a completely different meaning, isn't it? Okay. See, I'm glad we did this, because the Hebrew New Testament from Salkinson's is much better. And it goes through each word with Strong's. Okay. I used the Gemini program, but the one you pay $20 a month for, the upgraded one. And I had it go to get Salkinson, and then base all the translation work on Strong's, which is not optimum, but you can see the meaning of this is altogether different. And it shall be whomever you forgive their sins. So if you're going to forgive the people for sinning, it's they sinned against you. It's forgiven them. And whomever you hold guilty, they're held guilty. So if somebody's going after you, intentionally and purposely and evilly, and you don't forgive them, you want to hold them guilty, I suppose that scripture says you could do it, or that scripture's wrong, and I'm not going to say the scripture's wrong. So when you go to the King James, it says, whosoever sins you forget, you remit, they are remitted unto them, and whosoever sins you retain, they are retained. See, it's a completely different meaning. I mean, the one in the King James makes it seem broad. You can go get people across the world who you never were within 100 miles of in your whole life, and they don't know you're alive or dead or even exist. And, you start forgiving or, unforgiving their sins or something like that. That's not what this is really talking about, I don't think. So, okay. Now it makes more sense. You see, the Bible was originally done in Hebrew. And I told you the New Testament, what they did is they took the Greek New Testament and they looked in the Septuagint, the Greek Old Testament that was done before Yeshua, so they didn't have the big axe to grind over the Messiah when that was done. They don't, now the English Septuagints generally are junk, okay? They're designed to deceive you. So what they did is they took the New Testament Greek, found the same word in the New Testament Greek used in the Old Testament Septuagint in Greek, then looked in the Hebrew Bible to see what word the Greek word was replacing in the Hebrew Old Testament, took that Hebrew word, moved it over and plugged it in to the New Testament, and then built the whole New Testament that way, which is a pretty darn good way of doing it. Pretty darn good way of doing it. And they rebuilt the Hebrew New Testament. Now there's twisted versions of that, just like, you could get the Living Bible and other stupid translations, The one that a guy named Salkinson, and in Hebrew it's tzaddik, but in English it's Salkinson. It's available for free. Some of it was 1880, some of it was 1885. It was done with a guy named Ginsberg. I believe they were both Jewish. And they did a translation of this. And you got to understand, they were doing this without computers. You know how tedious this was? It was tedious. It took them years. I could take a whole chapter from the Hebrew New Testament and have AI translate it based on Strong's or Jacinius or whatever I want to have it based on, and it'll do it in, I don't know, under a minute, where it probably took them to do a whole chapter. You know, I don't. Maybe the best they would do is get it in one whole day. You know, or half a day, or it took them a long time, I'm sure. They had works that would help them. I think there was concordances, Jacinius for sure, so they could look the word up and see what verse it was, and you know, they could do it, but it was tedious. Now it's just boom. Nobody's publishing an English version of Salkinson because the devil doesn't want that. Salkinson appears in Hebrew as a New Testament. The Israelites don't read it, the Jews don't read it, and the church people aren't going to read it. You know, maybe 1/1,000,000th of 1% of the church world would actually ever read it. You know, but it's really a nice work, and it opens up a lot of doors. When they did this work, a lot of things in the Bible that seemed odd in the New Testament cleared up, like we just cleared one up right now. Okay. Now I want to switch to Daughter of Babylon again. They're talking, the false teachers and the false believers, the false teachers that want to sell you books and, you know, tapes and, you know, stuff like that, DVDs, whatever you call it. They're coming up with a new version of twisting the truth. Okay? So, how are they twisting the truth in this latest version? Well, it's not a new way of twisting the truth. It's an old version that was around before World War II. See, I don't want to get into the storytelling, but it's an old version, okay? Look, during World War II, there were people printing books like crazy. I've seen the books. You can find them in used bookstores. They're hard to come across today, but they're probably still out there. Most of them was softback, and they were cheap books back then. They probably sold in the 40s, you know, for, you know, 30, 25 cents, 50, 75 cents, you know. The false teachers were publishing books. Mussolini's the Antichrist. Hitler's the Antichrist. I never saw one that said Emperor Tirohoto or whatever his name was in Japan was the Antichrist. But there was plenty of writings about Hitler and Mussolini, and they were all wrong. You can't make merchandise out of God's people. Let me explain something to you. I don't do I don't open up the, what do they call it? Monetization on the channel. Okay. Monetization means that they would show ads on my channel. Okay. I don't do that. So they don't like me because they can't make money from me. Okay. They don't like me. If I did do monetization, what would happen? More people, the channel would probably double in, I don't know, 6 months, maybe 3 months, or it would get a lot bigger, a lot faster. I don't know how fast, okay? But it would get really busy, okay? Um, Offerings would bound to increase, and I would get money from monetization. With a channel the size that I have now, what money would we be talking about for monetization? Oh, I would say I'd be lucky to get $500 a year. A year. Okay. Nothing, you know. But the reason I don't do it is I'm making merchandise out of God's people. Let me explain. You got to watch the ads so I can make money. Now, my motive wouldn't be really to make money, because the amount of money I'd make at a channel this size is nonsense. I might make $100 in a year. It doesn't mean anything. But I'm subjecting you to ads, and what happens? The other channels for the big false teachers have money, because they're selling books, speaking tours, conferences. Let's take a cruise to Timbuktu together and I'll teach you the Bible, and this kind of stuff. So they pay for advertising with YouTube. You can do that, okay? So they're going to look for Bible related sites, okay? They're not going to look for a site that talks about the best scotch or the best tequila. What would they use? That nobody there is going to want to pay attention to the Bible. So they look for Bible sites, any and all Bible sites, and they play their ads on them, right? That's what they would do. So people here would be getting ads for people, teaching them that, Trump and Netanyahu are the two witnesses, let's say, or nonsense, So now I'm promoting the concept of people who I'm trying to teach the true gospel to being bombarded with false teaching. Now, if there was no control over this, YouTube came out with a policy and said, suck it up, buttercup, you're going to have ads. Well, that's one thing. But since I have the option, I have to take the option to not allow that. Do you understand? Because it could be treacherous. What if one person is walking in the truth and then they get pulled away? Oh, we got a praise report from AP, Alpha Papa. Yeah, the prayer about problems with an old landlord. Yeah, that they're not really there. They're not going to be there. Everything ended okay. It appears that everything was fine. It's a praise report. Everything was good. It's good. Okay. So that's always nice. All right. So moving along. This Hebrew New Testament is really really a good work, and it's available for free online, but it's not going to do you much good. But you can get an AI program and say, give me, Mark chapter 13 from the Hebrew New Testament. You have to say Salkinson. and put it into English based on Strong's concordance slash lexicon or dictionary, whatever Strong's calls it. Okay, the concordance just shows you where the word is used elsewhere in the Bible, but a dictionary, I think Strong calls it a dictionary, tells you the meaning. Okay, you could say lexicon. It's a similar thing. It'll do it right, and then it'll put it up there, and then you could read it. I think it would work with the free um, uh, AI programs or AI apps. So if you're talking 1880, 1980 it's 145 years or so, maybe 85, 140 years. So there's no copyright on the thing, you know. Okay, the King James has no copyright on it now. So why the daughter of Babylon is not Rome today? Let's review this and go through it a little deeper. First thing is, when they say Rome, what the heck are they calling Rome? You see, on one of their hands, they're talking about Rome, the Rome that was there when Yeshua got killed. The Rome that did the 70 AD. That's not the Romish Church or the Catholic Church. That's the nation of Rome, which is no longer a nation. The nation of Rome was not just Italy. It had a lot of territory. Okay, there is no more Rome. Okay, now if they're talking about a Roman church when the book of Revelation, well, I mean, there's no reference to a Roman church, you know. They're making this up, basically, is what I'm telling you. The Roman church is an apostate church like any other apostate church. Idolatry, praying to Yeshua's mother, the wafer turning into Christ, re-crucifying him when they do the baptism with the wafer. And, you know, it's nonsense. And to say that it's Rome is, they got nothing to go on. But that's the first thing you got to understand. They're not defining it. If they define it as the Catholic, you can't define Rome as Italy, okay? You got to define it as the Catholic Church, is what they really are trying to tell you. And the Catholic Church is the Vatican. So would it be more accurate for them to say the Vatican? Yeah. And how many people live in the Vatican? 800 to 900 people. Are any Jews living in there? No. So how are the Jews going to come out of there and let Zion come to mind? They're not. There's no Jews in there. What about the many waters, like the Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of America or Gulf of Mexico previously, the Great Lakes, which are the size of oceans almost, and 8,000 rivers, and I don't know how many thousands of lakes, probably 100, 200,000 lakes. That's your many waters. What does the Vatican have? Well, they got toilets, water fountains, maybe. They don't got many waters, okay? Then they talk about the 7 hills, and they say the word has to mean mountains. Let's assume he's right. First of all, he's referencing the Greek, not the Hebrew, but let's give it to him. Let's say he's right, okay? It's an allegorical thing, okay, to mean continents. That's what it means. How are the Jews gonna? There's no Jews there. It's absurd, you know. So again, just don't let them fool you. They're trying to promote that it's the Vatican. This has been something that went on before World War II and during World War II, where the so-called Christian churches, Pentecostal and mostly Pentecostal churches, were really kicking at the Catholic Church. Okay? And they were talking about the nuns having babies and how they found the bones of babies buried under these all of this stuff. And, was the stuff true? Yeah, but I mean, it's like, what do you want? Would you rather have a case of COVID or a case of Ebola? And the hantavirus, by the way, guys. There's been an outbreak, of what? Of people on that expedition ship, which they call a cruise ship, rather incorrectly. They're the ones that got it. It doesn't spread very well from patient to patient or person to person. And they're screaming Ebola problems in Africa. Well, in the last, 25 years, how many Ebola problems did we hear break out in Africa? Quite a bit. There's nothing new. Quite a bit of problems with that. Quite a bit. And the hantavirus is very, very, very unlikely to be spreading, okay? Um, they're calling it, the threat, oh, this is a problem and all that, but yeah. We had that doctor that went to help people on the boat, and he came down with it, and he said he had a little low-grade fever and stuff like that. He was on the boat, though. They're giving you the impression he caught it from the people. He probably caught it from the boat. Okay? All right, now I want to cover something else with you in scriptures. This is being used by the false teachers to discredit the idea of Enoch and Elijah being the two witnesses. And so I'm really debunking this, okay? Hebrews 9:27 and 28. We'll do 27 first. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, after this, the judgment. Okay. That's Hebrews 9:27. Let's take that and 28 and get it put into Salkinson in English, okay? You never know what you're going to turn up here, right? There we go. Stop crying. Some other dog is barking and you're so jealous? Come on. I have to give very, very specific instructions to the AI. I'm saying Salkinson's Hebrew New Testament, translate to English according to Strong's No commentary. I don't want to. I don't want to get a commentary from AI. I can care less about that. The translations are pretty good that it comes up with, by the way. Well, that was less than a minute. It's giving me the Hebrew, and then we'll get the English. Okay. And just as it is decreed upon the sons of men to die one time, and after this, the judgment. Okay, you see, the meaning is still pretty close, but it's more clear when you read it in the Hebrew New Testament. I myself do not believe the translators of the Bible, Wycliffe and Tyndale, all the way back to 1500s, to the King James, really knew Hebrew. I think they translated from the Latin and the Greek, and that's it. I don't think they knew Hebrew. But maybe they knew something. I don't know. I mean, they might have used Jusinius. I don't know. And just as it is decreed upon the sons of men to die only once, and after this, the judgment. Okay. So, men have to die once. That's what we're getting out of this. God doesn't break his word. Now, Melchizedek, he was different because his days were without number, and he didn't die. I'm rather certain he would have been a son of God, and we don't read much about him, so I don't know what happened. But because Yeshua is a high priest in the order of Melchizedek, Yeshua has immortality, and when he comes in New Jerusalem, he'll have immortality. And will have immortality because in New Jerusalem there is no death. Possibly if you got thrown out of New Jerusalem, there would be death. I don't know. I don't think so. Satan was immortal, and what kind of future does he have? Well, lake of fire. Okay? So that doesn't mean you got a ticket to heaven. Okay. Elijah went up in a whirlwind. The company car, the chariot from heaven, came down, and he went up in a whirlwind and dropped his mantle to Elisha, showing him he had a double portion of what Elijah had, the anointing, the spirit, and Elisha did twice the number of recorded miracles that Elijah did. Okay? Now, Enoch walked with God and he wasn't there anymore. God translated him and took him. So what happened? Now, this is where we get deep about this. Okay, what happened? Flesh and blood shall not inherit the kingdom of God. So they didn't get a flesh and blood body and go up there. It's a different kind of body. Like when Yeshua rose from the dead, he went up on a cloud. Well, you try that. Okay, I'd like to see somebody go up on a cloud. The only kind of cloud you're going to go up on is a Hollywood cloud where it's made out of metal and has thin wires and you stand on it and they pull you up and makes it look like that. That's the only thing they're going to do. Okay, so that's that's not it. All right. They're saying that because God took them up to heaven, he did it and they didn't die. They were men on earth and they went up to heaven and they didn't die. So they're saying by the rules of these bad teachers, these evil ones, they're saying God broke the scriptures and he didn't. If they said God would have had them die in the blink of an eye and translate them and bring them up so they did die, well, but then we'd have to start explaining where are their bodies. You know, we get into some thick soup there and it doesn't tend to work. So they're saying God can't do this. God can't take them up to heaven, keep them there a few thousand years, then send them back. And then they die. Which is what's going to happen. And that will fulfill the prophecy, like Yeshua died. Okay? And Apostle John. Well, Apostle John just basically is living a long time. And he dies. A lot of the apostles were at that time gung-ho to get whipped and punished and put in jail and get crucified and all that stuff because they were, into that, but they also were into training and teaching the people. And we don't know a lot about all the apostles and what they did, I don't think we have a full New Testament. I don't think so. I think some of the stuff has been removed. Do I think that there would probably be more stuff in there about spiritual warfare the way, like, I elaborate on it? Yeah, I think so. It's not there. More prophecy things, describing it better and things that we might be missing altogether. Yeah. Could it be also taken out of the Old Testament? Yeah, there's, I think, 20-something books that the Old Testament refers to as Bible that we don't have. Now, you go out and look for them, like the Book of Enoch. There's different books of Enoch around. I think the one that's real is in the Pseudepigrapha written by C.H. Charles, published by Oxford in 1913. I have them. I think that's the real one. It should be available online. It's Pseudepigrapha, Pseudepigrapha, I think. It's not a commonly used word. When was the last time you had walked around the street and heard somebody say, well, the Pseudepigrapha say, it's not a nice word. It means pseudo. Okay, it's saying it's a pseudo make-believe books of the Bible. There really aren't books of the Bible. That's what it's saying. It's a 2-volume set. It's a big thing. It's about that thick, and it's a big book. And the other one is the Apocrypha. And some of the stuff, I've read it time and time again, and some of the stuff makes you think it's real in your spirit, and some of the stuff doesn't witness to your spirit. And stuff like that. I don't teach out of it, and I don't teach out of the Apocrypha except for one thing with Jeremiah hiding the tabernacle in 2nd Maccabees chapter 2. That's the only time I use the Apocrypha, but the Book of Enoch is really rather interesting, so they got to die. So the fact that God interrupts their death because he wants to bring them back up to heaven because they're his sons and he wants to hang out with them, and these people go, oh, he can't do that. See, to them, what this tells me is this. The Bible is a book of sins to the Satan bots. Okay? And that's what this person is basically saying. God broke the rules, And you just got to ignore that. And that's the latest that they're using to discredit Enoch and Elijah being the two witnesses. They're the ones that were men and never died. They're the only ones. So that's why we say that. And they were greatly used of God as prophets. So that's what we're talking about. Okay? All right. Next, we go to verse 28. Now, verse 28 is an interesting verse because it sort of sums up what I've been teaching you for years about prophecy and the appearing. So, the Messiah was offered one time, die only once, right? Was offered one time to bear the sin of many. So he was taking the sins away, like, you can remit the sin. He had that ability. Okay, took the sins away. And a second time he will appear. The word is appear. Not come back down on the earth without sin, so that's the glorified Christ will appear, for salvation. That word would be Yeshua or Yeshua, redemption or salvation, you could say, to those waiting for him, to those he's salvation for those waiting for him. Are you waiting for him? Are you watching? Lift up your head, your redemption draweth nigh. That whole thing, lift up your head, your redemption draweth nigh, is for what's called the year or the Shanat of redemption, when Yeshua appears in the clouds. Now, he actually does appear in the clouds seated on the right hand of God the Father. Okay, because it says, what is it, Psalm 110:1? The Lord said to my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool. Well, the enemies are not yet made a footstool when he appears in the cloud, okay? But the ones that aren't waiting for him are the ones that don't believe it. What church teaches this? The Church of the Appearing? No such church. I don't know. I've never found one that does. I wish there was a couple of thousand or 25,000 or more churches that taught this, but they just don't seem to. So, there it is. It's just a good summation of everything, right there in a few words. It confirms so much, doesn't it? So here, do we reach people? Yes. Do we reach a lot of people? No. I guess there's not supposed to be a lot of people. I don't know. Um, I'm gonna go look at the live stream. See, the problem is people, I tell them this, and it's in their Bible, and they'll read it in their own Bible, and then they'll reject it, and they'll say they're rejecting me, but they're not really rejecting me, they're rejecting their scripture. And they don't like to think of it that way because they're not doing things correctly. Their balance is not right. What do I make of the great, what is this? The great noticing? I believe it's an Islamic day on, but I don't know it's being pushed by the Qatari using AI. Well, I have no idea what that is. It's not in the Bible, so I would ignore it. Let me read more comments. Today and on your other live stream, maybe there is a loud, constant, highly annoying hum. That, I'm sorry that's getting picked up. It's a pipe, an irrigation pipe. I'm sorry. We've reduced it, but we don't have the money to go and rework it and stop it. I'm sorry. I'll try to close some windows and stop it. It's coming from another room. There's another noise from a fan. I can take care of that too. I didn't know it was getting picked up. This new iPad that I got is really a really good one. I try to not use it for anything except the broadcast. I just keep it in the room here, and I recharge it, and then I don't do anything with it except the broadcast. Operation SIG, which I recently learned about, also caught by, I don't know anything about that. Hit the thumbs up, good, thank you. Yeah, I'm in Israel in the Galilee. I've lived here many years. Yeah, now I'm hearing that annoying hum. I was ignoring it before. Now that you brought it up, it's bothering me. On the next broadcast, I'll hunt up a way to stop it. I'll try very hard. You will help the channel, and it'll take you 3 or 4, 5 seconds, and it's free, or maybe a few more seconds. If you hit the thumbs up, it helps. Okay. If you put any kind of post at all up in the live stream, it helps. It shows interaction. And when it's a video, if you're watching this and it's a video, not a live stream, you just put any kind of comment in there, okay? And that helps the channel, it pushes it up more, okay? So I do get a good amount of people hitting the like button, but if we got more, it would, the more the better. It helps the algorithm, you know. YouTube still displays videos and live streams that people make because the they want people coming into YouTube. Okay. Um, that gets them started, and they might transition over to another channel that has ads on it or something like that, you know. If you pay the $10, I think it's $10 a month to YouTube, you get a premium channel, and with the premium channel, you don't get ads at all. So that's kind of curious as well. If somebody pays for the premium, they never see any ads. So I don't know what YouTube is really dedicated to or not to. The other way that it would probably help me, that I could do, I suppose, but I haven't, is what's called Super Chat, where people donate money and during the live stream, it's a live stream thing. And the reason I don't do it is it's got a lot of wrongness to it. It's 30% of the money goes to YouTube. So YouTube now has a vested interest in promoting the channel, providing the channel gets money. If the channel doesn't get money and people don't do it, then they'll forget about it. They'll watch it a little bit. But if it gets money all the time, they'll promote the channel more, I expect. But it's not right to have the people give money and lose 30% of it. That's too much. Most people don't like that, you know. I see people that they do the super chat and then they, you know, put something in the live stream instead of the 30%, use PayPal, you know, things like that. That's what I did. So I've made a decision to stay away from that. It's important that you don't make merchandise out of God's people, okay? And it says that you're not supposed to do that, and yet they do it. What's an example of making merchandise out of God's people? Well, I rented a stadium in, you know, anywhere, Italy or China, whatever, and we're having a meeting there tonight. It starts at 7:00, or next month we're having a meeting in this place in Kansas, or you know, Toronto or London or whatever, right? And I've rented this hotel's conference room, which holds 350 people, and we're going to have a prophecy conference. I'll be speaking, and John Doe will be speaking, and Jane Doe will be speaking, and Wyatt Earp will be speaking, you know, and Doc Holliday, you know, I'm just making these names up, you know. And you know, you get an itinerary, and the seats are, you know, from $50 to $100, depending what row you're in. And you see, that's selling the gospel. That's making merchandise out of God's people. And if a person ever did have an anointing from the Lord, and they started undertaking that type of a thing, they would come under gripping conviction and stop. If they really pushed it, the conviction would be really high, And then things would start going wrong with their ministry, and then things would start going wrong in their life. And after enough of that, if they kept it up, well, now they're castaways. Paul said that he didn't want to be a castaway. Okay, so Paul said he didn't want to be a castaway. There is no such thing as once saved, always saved. That's nonsense. Okay. The fact that they don't experience any conviction in the spirit, and they go out and hold these conferences, and then they say, hey, let's take a tour, of Israel. Come here. It's a 10 or 14-day tour. It's only $3,200 a person, so a couple is $6,400, and it covers everything. You know, they make a fortune on this, a fortune. Okay, and if you got 75 people to come, and you did one tour, we figured out you'd make enough money to live the whole year. I think $75,000 or something you'd make, or something. I can't remember, something like that, and you'd be able to live the whole year. And a lot of these guys do it 2-3 times a year. So they're driving a new car, and they got a nice house, and travel and stuff like that. The ministers of the dollar that impersonate being true believer ministers love to travel because it gets them out of Israel. They get to eat better food. They get to buy stuff they could bring back. It gets them out of Israel. Israel's very hard to live in. You get used to it, but it's very hard. I remember I lived here in the 90s for a few years, and I went back to America, and I went back to Florida, and we just flew in to Florida. We got in to where I had rented an apartment from Israel, so I had one waiting for me. It was a furnished apartment, and I told them what night I was coming in, and the manager left the door open and had the key on the table. Of course, it was in North Florida, nobody would do anything, so we got in, and we went in there, and the key was there, and then I went back. I had to go to the supermarket. There was nothing to eat in the place. So I had a rented car. I went to the nearby supermarket, and it was open. It was late at night. It was 9, 10, 11. I don't know. The supermarket was still open. I went into the supermarket. It was called Publix Market, Publix, and my jaw dropped. I said, look at all this good food. Oh, wow, I don't have to struggle reading the labels. Everything's in England. Oh, I couldn't believe it. And the prices were so low, and the quality was so good, and I knew all the food. And so I bought several bags of food. I didn't sit there and buy enough for a whole week. I just bought enough for a few days, And I came back, and we put the stuff in the refrigerator, and then I believe I turned the TV on, and I was watching TV in English, and I was, oh man, The big thing then was I used to like to watch the Star Trek with Captain Picard, and Luke is number 2. So I watched that, and that was basically, I don't know if we got cable. I think we had cable. The furnished apartment came with I think it was a 21-inch TV or a 23. It had a nice enough old TV, curved screen. This was back in the early 90s or mid 90s, something like that. And I was, really having a nice time. It was a nice modern apartment, you know. Um, it was a short walk to the swimming pool, a short walk to the gym. I got myself a shea lounge and I went outside and lay down on the grass in the sun. I'd read magazines or books. It had a little balcony, which I was on the ground floor. It was a concrete slab with a fence over it, so we got a little hibachi and barbecuing. And it had a nice stove, a beautiful kitchen, a nice toilet. We had two toilets and two bedrooms, and it had carpeting, wall to wall carpeting. I never saw a house in Israel with wall to wall carpeting, ever. I never saw it. There must be people that have it, but I just never saw it. And it had nice air conditioning. Back then in Israel, you had to be rich to get an air conditioner. Air conditioners were a few $1,000. So I had air conditioning again. It was so bad in Israel back then. We used to sleep at night with two fans at an angle like this. That was enough to get to sleep. It cooled you enough with the double fans. You get to sleep. If you slept in front of a fan, one fan, it was usually okay. And in the winter it was cold. You had no central heat or anything. It was just a hard life. And then all of a sudden it got easy, immediately, you know. I had jet lag for a few days. I had to wake up the next day and go see the manager and sign the agreement. And what else did I have to do? That was about it. And then I think I went out and sat by the pool. Oh, wait a minute. No, it was winter time. I didn't do that. No, I wouldn't have sat by the pool. Not right away. So it was cold. See, I was in Florida. If you made a straight line to Tiberias, where I used to live, it was about the same thing. So we had, actually, crazy as it seemed, we had similar weather. Crazy as it seems. So, towards the end of February, where I was, Tallahassee, it started warming up. So then we started using the pool, and that was delightful. And it had a jacuzzi that was also delightful. And it had a nice gym, which I enjoyed. And, it was really, I'd go to a movie in English, that was, wow. Go to a mall. We didn't have malls in Israel, I think they just were building, or maybe they just finished a mall in Jerusalem, but I never went inside it. They didn't have malls. Everything was expensive and crappy in Israel, and in America everything was good and cheap, and the restaurants were so good. Oh, just the pizza was, just to get a good pizza was so exciting. Chinese food. I never saw good Chinese food in Israel. They got, okay, I can order Chinese food that comes to the house or go to them, and it's really good Chinese food, but it's not, if you live in Europe or you live in America or Asia or practically anywhere, you're not going to think it's Chinese food. The Israelis don't like like you don't get chow fun, you don't get chicken chow mein, you don't get beef chop suey, you don't get that here. I never saw it that was authentic or anything, or not even close to it, not even 50% close. They don't have it. Egg drop soup, yeah, one place had it and it was delicious, but the chef must have left. They don't have it anymore. Egg rolls, vegetable egg rolls I can get, usually they're pretty good. You can buy egg rolls in the supermarket that are frozen, and you could nuke them or put them in an oven or a pan and heat them, whatever you want to do. Nuke them is usually the way to go, and or oven, and they're pretty close to real egg rolls. They are real egg rolls, really. But I can't even get frozen Chinese food here. I can't. You know, they got the cans in the supermarkets, chicken chow mein in a tall can, and you got another little can with the noodles. And I don't have that here. What can I get? I can get this restaurant. They make their own noodles, thick noodles. Are they good? Yes. Are they very good? They're quite good, I would say. Do they have the right sauces? Heck no. They got sweet sauces. Everything is sugary, sweet sauces. That's not right. Okay. Um, do they make the beef like it is in the Chinese restaurant in, let's say, America? Yeah. The chicken, cut in little chunks. Yeah, that's the same. Okay. It doesn't quite taste as good as it does in America because they're using kosher beef and kosher chicken, which I've told you a million times, doesn't taste good. There's no basis in the Bible for any of that kosher. The Bible, not that we're under Moses' law, we're not, but Moses' law only talks about clean and unclean animals. Nobody's koshering food by washing it and salting it. That's the salt covenant for food being sacrificed and used on the altar, not for people to eat. But anyway, moving along. You can't, you know, you just don't have it. It just doesn't taste right. Everything is sweet, whatever you get. I get noodles or I get, you know, vegetables. It's, I don't know. Can you call it Chinese food? I don't think so. I mean, they call it that. I'll be right back in a second. I don't know what it is. It's edible. I mean, it's enjoyable, but it's sweet, yucky stuff. So we don't, the thing is, it's real easy to leave Israel. I stayed out 25 years. Then the Lord told me it was time to come back, and I was procrastinating, and I had a lot of bad experiences from doing that. I don't suggest you do that again. I wouldn't do it again. I don't suggest you do any procrastination. It's not a good idea. Uh, Hang on a second. Okay. I don't know how many Israelis have left since the war. Let's see if AI can get a figure for that. Let's give it a chance. Chat GPT will research it thoroughly. Let's see. Oh, before we do that, I wanted to tell you about something. They started selling a legal weapon that I think even a child could buy in America, and it's on Amazon. It may be getting sold in other countries too. And I'll explain it to you. It's a revolver that doesn't shoot real bullets. It shoots darts. A dart has a little thing here, like to catch the air, and then it's about a 3-inch long dart that has a point. It's probably made out of a firm stainless steel. It's a revolver with 6 cylinders, and it runs off a CO2 cartridge. Okay? And you put your dart in the cylinders and you turn them, you load them one at a time like you would load bullets, and then you just pull the trigger and the CO2, the bullet, it fires it through the barrel, which is about 3 or 4 inch barrel, and it projects the dart towards the target. Now, a guy bought one of these and shot it at a car window. It didn't break the car window, but chipped the glass. He shot it at a car door, and it didn't penetrate. It sort of, I think, stuck in the metal or made a dent in the metal, something like that. This is a powerful thing if you're denting metal with this dart, right? He shot it through a bulletproof vest, and it went through. The needle pierced it through a bulletproof vest. But you see, this is not a bullet. This is a stabber. Like if you shot it at a stab-proof vest, like the ones that correction officers use, it wouldn't have gone through. But the correction officers are not wearing a vest to stop bullets because they don't think there's a risk of bullets in the jail. They have a risk of pointed objects. Because you could, take a toothbrush and, rub it on the concrete and make it pointed or something like that. Okay, so they, but this thing, if it was shot at a human, even with clothing on, would go in deep. Would that kill you? It depends where it would hit you. Probably not. In most cases. What if you got it in your eye? Well, I don't know what would happen. It could kill you. What if you got it in your throat? And it may cause tremendous difficulty breathing, and if you pull it out, you may be okay, or you may not. I don't know what would happen. What if you hit the carotid? Well, then you'd probably bleed out, In general, though, if it doesn't hit a very special little area, like if you hit your arm or your leg or something like that, you probably just pull it out. What if it hit your scalp? Would it go through the bone? I doubt it. I really doubt it. Now that's this one version. Somebody might make another version of it where it goes at greater velocity than it might, but I don't think it's going to be a serious threat for that. Let me tell you what the real problem is. There's a bunch of frogs in the world that come from tropical climates. I'm trying to remember where they are, in South America or Africa. I can't remember. They're called poison dart frogs. They're very beautiful frogs. They got lots of nice colors on them. That should serve to warn predators to leave these frogs alone. If you want to go out and eat a frog, eat a green one or a brown one. Don't eat one with all the different colors on them. Okay? Now, these are called poison dart frogs. Why? These frogs have a poison in them, a real poison, not exactly a venom, but a poison. It works on the heart and other things in your body. Okay, and the poison comes from inside the frog to the skin. So if the frog's in duress or stressed or thinks he's being hunted or attacked, it'll come up into his skin. And the other animal, when he tastes it or gets close and smells it, should drop the frog and leave him alone and get out of there. Realize this is not something I could eat. Okay, or he tastes it. Now, it might be too late for the frog, and the frog's already dead and eaten. And if the animal eats the frog, the toxins would have come into the skin at the last minute for the frog as like a reflex, and that would probably kill the animal. How long it would take the animal to die, I don't know if he ate it, but you're talking about getting the poison in your stomach is one thing. That's going to take time. Okay? What they do, why it's called the poison dart frog in these jungle environments, which I think are South America, I can't remember. The people they make what's called a blowgun, probably out of some sort of wood, a bamboo or something else, and they can make them that are, 2-3 feet, and some of them might make one that's 6 feet long. And they make a mouthpiece on it, and they know how to blow it, I don't know how I don't really know how they blow it, but they have a way to blow it. And they make a dart, usually out of metal, and it has that little thing to catch the air. And they make it so that little thing to catch the air, it's got like hairs on it, fills the tube. The tube of the blowgun is the barrel on the CO2 gun, okay? The CO2 gas is replacing the puff of air that the shooter hunting with this does. What he does is he raises poison dart frogs, right? And takes the dart and rubs it on the frog, gets the poison on the frog, waits for it to dry up, sticks it in his blowgun, and blows it and hits like a squirrel, a bird, a small animal. Okay, he's probably not going to hunt the deer, but maybe he would. I don't know. Maybe a small deer it would work on. A 180-pound buck, maybe it would get him real sick and not kill him. I don't know, might kill him too. I have no idea. But they do that. They go hunting with it. So if you just shoot the animal with a dart, chances are he's going to shake it, it's going to fall out, and the animal's just going to close the wound, and that's it. You might hit him in a vital area, or I don't know. But with the poison dart frog, the animal gets sick and dies. It kills the animal. Now, this is why I'm talking about it. Kids, for many years around the world, buy these poison dart frogs because they think it's cool. Then the kids realize that the animal in captivity is not going to make the poison because he's not eating in his natural environment. He's living in a house, in a bowl or an aquarium, and you're giving him food and you're not giving him his natural food. They don't produce the poison. So the kids like them because they can take them out and play with them and they don't get the poison on their hands. Now, if you were a warrior or a hunter and you rubbed it on there and you wound up touching the thing, you just really got to wash it off you. You're probably not, it's a bad idea to touch it. I would only use rubber gloves, but it's probably not going to hurt you if you wash your hands right away. Soap and water and scrub it real good. Probably have no effect on you. If you left it on you, it would probably seep through the skin and you probably would not die, but you might feel bad for a while. I don't know, but you might have to go to the hospital. I don't know. But what the kids have been doing, and I know this is going on for about 15, 20 years, 30 years even. There's idiots selling these kids what the frogs eat in their natural environment, the plants and the various dead bugs or different things like that. I think it's the plants that's the key thing. They gotta give the frog the same plants that it gets in the natural environment to eat, or it is bugs maybe. I can't. They sell the food, and if you give this poison dart food, the poison dart frog, the food, it produces the poison. Now the kids probably don't tell their parents this. They probably just order the food, and then they make the poison for the dart. But usually it's not going to go anywhere because the kid doesn't know how to shoot a dart gun. You know, with the blow gun, he doesn't know how to do it. And you know, if you run around with a large blowgun, you're going to attract attention of police. Now, maybe he can go in the woods someplace or in the rainforest and get away with it. And that's fine. He's just hunting with it, you know. But now they're selling these dart guns powered by CO2, and idiots are going to get the poison dart frog, give them the right food, get the poison, put it on the dart, and now they got a deadly weapon that's not controllable. And I don't think the law is definitive about this. Using a poisoned dart, or you could put it on an arrow too. Don't think you can't put it on an arrow. And shooting it at somebody, I don't know what the law would do to you. If it's in self-defense, probably nothing. But the premeditation of this is where your problem's going to come. Also, what if a kid takes a knife, where the knife folds into a handle, and puts the poison dart frog poison on the knife, on the edge of the blade that's all the way down inside the handle, and on the point that's all the way inside the handle. And then he opens the flick knife and then cuts somebody with it, and they're going to definitely get the poison in their bloodstream. How does that work? Or he plunges it in them. I don't know. I never heard of anybody doing it. I just heard of stupid kids trying to get the darts from this frog, poison the dart, and then use it as a blowgun. But now that you got this CO2 gun that's about this big, it's not small, it's pretty big. And a CO2 gun is not a real gun. You don't have any gun control. You don't have any. Now, you might have cities like New York and LA maybe, or, you know, Washington, D.C., that have laws prohibiting the sale of these guns or something like that. But, you know, 95% of America or 90% is going to let you buy the gun. And getting the dart frog, these poison dart frogs are prohibitive in some states in America, but most of the states allow it. Do I think it's a good weapon? No, I think it's a stupid weapon for a lot of reasons. Number one, it's dangerous. Like putting the poison on your own knife, you got to be an idiot to do that, because the chances of you cutting yourself are too high. It's stupid, and it's not necessary. If you plunge a knife into somebody, they're going to be in plenty bad shape. You don't have to risk poisoning yourself. It's a stupid idea, okay? Cultivating the frog like this and getting it to generate the poison, again, is a stupid idea, okay? Having a pet frog is why? The frog would maybe know who you are because you feed it, but that's all you are to the frog, is a messenger or a waiter that comes and feeds the frog, or changes the water, or cleans the container or the bowl or the aquarium he's in. That's all you are to the frog. You're not anything to the frog that the frog cares about. They don't bond to you. They're rather stupid. They eat bugs a lot. I think that's really what it's the type of bug they eat has to be the same in the environment. So they get dead bugs. Somebody probably raises the bugs, kills them, puts them in a jar as food. Like you can buy aquarium food that's dead bugs. It's the same thing. It's dead bugs, but it's those bugs. And it's enough to make them generate the poison from their skin, from inside, and it comes out their skin when they need it. Like a porcupine, its needles come up when he needs it, or a skunk sprays when he needs it. It's just that kind of a thing. A skunk doesn't walk around spraying all the time. It's when some dog starts hunting him or something like that. It gives the dog a good blast, and the dog doesn't like that. And then you see dogs that hate the skunks, and they occasionally try to give the skunk a chase, and they get it again. And then the owner has a heck of a time getting it off the skunk. I think you got to use vinegar or something like that. Bicarbonate of soda might work. I don't know why. It's just a miserable job. A lot of dogs start up with raccoons, which can be a bad idea. They're dangerous. They got sharp little claws, and they can bite, and they'll try to hurt the dog to get away from the dog, generally. Now, that's if it's a 100-pound German Shepherd. If it's a 25-pound poodle or something, they may decide they just want to finish the dog off. But I think generally they don't eat dog, so they would try to repel the dog and then run up a tree, knowing the dog won't run up a tree. A cat would generally not attack a raccoon. That would be a rather rare occurrence. If there was competition for food, the raccoon would scare the cat away, I'm sure. Now, there's idiot cats. I've seen cat video where the cat torments an alligator close to the water. The alligator's half in and half out of the water, and the cat's going over there smacking the alligator with his paw. He's not hurting the alligator, but the cat knows that he's too fast for the alligator. And he also knows he can go up and the alligator can't. So he's tormenting the alligator, but by no means could he kill or eat the alligator. He's just annoying the thing. Now that's a cat that's too smart for his own good. That's a dangerous game of no value to the cat, and he can lose his life easy. Just one snap of the jaw and a shake, and the cat's dead. So the alligator tries to just put up with the getting swatted to see if the cat's dumb enough to be relaxed and get too close, and he can surge out and grab it. But a cat in its prime, which this cat was, is very, very fast and agile. The alligators are kind of clumsy, But that mouth is this wide and this long. He's got a lot he's got to avoid, So I saw this thing with this weapon being promoted. A lot of people that can't own a gun because they're in a jurisdiction that doesn't allow guns, or they have a criminal record, or some other reason. A lot of them buy compressed air guns and CO2 guns. There's some guns that don't use a gas cartridge. You just have a pump, and there's a tank in there of air, and you pump it. Usually it's like a lever, and you pump it maybe 20 times, 30 times, or whatever, and it fills an air tank up that maybe is not enough for 10 shots. And they have pellets and BBs and it can be. They have balls too, big balls, like a 50 caliber even. And they don't get into the high velocities, but you can get sometimes 6 to 800 feet per second, which is plenty. That was the velocity of the 45 back in the days of Wyatt Earp. Okay, and you get hit with one of those, you're a prime candidate for a trip to the morgue or the hospital. Okay, they're dangerous, and people buy them now. They have some that you can buy that are big rifles that'll get up to 11, 1200 feet per second. So you could actually knock a deer out with something like that. You could take game with it, okay? And it's not that noisy, so you're not going to scare the game all over the woods. You're probably just going to be disturbing game for maybe 60 yards or something like that. And there's no explosion noise. It has a noise, but not much. And if you shot a person with that in the torso, they'd probably die. So they've made all kinds of air rifles. You know, the kids, when you were a kid, you had a Daisy Red Ryder, and you had a little pump like that, and it was really, I think, using some compressed air in there, but it went very slow, like 1 or 200, 250 feet per second with a little BB. And if you got it in your eye, it'd be bad. If you got it on your shirt, it would sting. That's all. Would it draw blood? No. Would it make a little black and blue mark? Likely. That's all it would do. It wouldn't do much to you. No. No. It didn't do a lot. It. And kids used to be stupid and have BB gun fights, but they'd only do that once or twice. They'd learn their lesson. You couldn't really hunt with the thing. I mean, maybe you could tag a baby squirrel or something. It wasn't much. Then they had Crossman made CO2 guns, but what they got today never used to exist back then. These things are actual weapons. So somebody could get a pistol with a CO2 gun pellet in there, which is much bigger than a BB, like 2 or 3 times. Not very big, probably about the size of a 22 bullet, something like that. And it has a CO2 cartridge, and it could shoot, boom, boom, boom. You might be able to get 10 or 12 shots out of a cartridge. And they can use it as a self-defense. If someone comes in the house and you start shooting them with that, they're certainly not going to ignore you, And then if you bought one of the really more volatile ones, you have a deadly weapon. It's not a deadly weapon. But this thing with the dart is very... Idiots are going to buy it. It's no good for self-defense. You shoot somebody with a gun, you knock them out right then and there. If you get them with a good hit, they stop fighting right away. Or you put 2 on them and they stop fighting. This thing is going to just get people mad and distracted. Now, if you have the poison on it, it's probably going to take a while to work. It's not going to work in 2 or 3 seconds. I would think it might take minutes, and they're going to keep coming at you. It's just, I don't know what, it's pretty quiet with the CO2, so people could actually have an assassin weapon here, but it would be a lousy one at best, but I don't know if anybody would try it. The bad news is it's attractive to kids, and kids could hurt themselves, hurt other kids, or hurt innocent people with this. That's the problem with this. So it's just another guy creating a weapon that you don't need any skill or training to use that can be dangerous. Even without the poison, just the regular dart is a dangerous thing. I mean, you don't want to have a dart sticking out of your arm, going in your arm. I mean, it's dirty. You're gonna have to get, you know, you'd have to take probably antibiotic or colloidal silver or something. Definitely clean the wound, and it's an annoying thing. Israel doesn't allow this stuff to come in here because the Arabs would use it against us. So the air rifles and stuff are contraband. You can't order an air rifle and have it shipped in. I don't believe you could buy an air rifle in Israel. Anyway, I still like my idea with a high-powered flashlight and pepper spray is plenty good. You ain't going to jail for that. Even in Israel, you could do it. They have pepper spray in Israel. You could get pepper spray. Now, when I say pepper spray, I mean you don't get wasp spray. You don't get oven cleaner. You get real cayenne pepper type pepper spray. Okay, Caspian, whatever they call it, and it comes in different versions. The foam is good, but not as fast. The spray liquid is the fastest and probably the most distance, and a bright flashlight. And the idea of these self-defense tools really is to get away from somebody. Okay. If you want to blind somebody with a flashlight in the daytime when the sun's out, you're going to have to get yourself something that's going to be about this long, and the head of it is going to be like that. It's going to be hard to put it in a pocket, okay? And you're probably going to be at the vicinity of like 30,000 lumens, and it's probably going to be at $300-400. And it probably would blind somebody during the day. But it's predominantly used for the night. And I have one that's about this big that I believe is 4,000 lumens. But it's only going to be 4,000 lumens for 10 seconds. Then it's going to drop down to probably 1,200 or something like that. But that's all I need, At night, 1,200 lumens is going to cause problems, but I would say you want at least 2,000 lumens, okay? Forget candle power, that's meaningless. 2,000 lumens flashlight, and rechargeable with a USB. And if somebody's approaching you at night and you shine it in their eyes, they're going to have to turn away. And then you could walk away from them. Okay, or run away. Or keep shining it on them so they can't turn around and see what direction you came in. Now, you could combine that with a pepper spray, okay? But if you shine it on the guy, the light, and the guy puts his hand up and turns his head, the pepper spray is not going to do you any good. What if you hit him with the pepper spray first? Well, that would be good, and then you turn the flashlight on. Well, it might have a good effect because his eyes are sensitive, but they're also going to be closed. But it would stop him from opening his eyes, because every time he tried to open his eyes and see where you were, he got a bright light until you were far enough away that you just ran away. Okay, the lights work on dogs too. But a dog could still come at you. You see, if a dog loses his vision like that, he's not going to be effective, but he may try to come at you based on sound and scent. So if you do try to shine this at a dog, a bright flashlight, move, go 5, 6, 10 feet away, so he can't use his memory to charge where you were, you know. And you could back it up with a shot of pepper spray on the dog, so his vision is going to be really discombobulated and he's not going to come chasing you down the street. Okay, that's if there's some dirty dog running around on the street bothering you for no reason, other than he's a rotten dog and he's running wild, and then you don't want to get bit. Yeah, you can do that. The combination of the two on a person is going to stop them from coming after you. Now, if you're in a situation like an Armageddon where the governments are gone, there's no more police, there's no more, everything's just wild, well, then you could take the flashlight and the pepper spray and combine them with other weapons like clubs, Bowie knives, and stuff like that, and then they become very lethal. You see these karate characters where they, on YouTube or something, the guy has a Bowie knife and they take it away. First of all, can they do it? Yeah, they can do it. But it's a real dangerous move. All you gotta do, if you know how to use the knife, they can't. You just flick the wrist. Bowie knife has a sharpened upper edge at the front. You can flick it either way, and you can cut them. And but let's say you're holding a Bowie knife and a pepper spray. You tell the guy, "Leave me alone. Go away." He doesn't go away. See how deadly that is? What about the flashlight and the Bowie knife? Light in the eye, plunge. What happens if you did that? Yes, in a regular, city in Europe or America or Asia, well, they would say that when you sprayed him with the pepper spray or you got him with the flashlight, you were no longer in fear for your life because his vision was obstructed. Therefore, the desired thing would be to run. Now, if you shot him with pepper spray or gave him the light and then you pushed them, they would let you get away with that. Unless you pushed them off a cliff or something, You just pushed them away from you and he didn't fall down and crack his head open. And just run away. That would work. But if you start using that and you're killing them with it, as the double edge. So with the knife guys, if you had 2 Bowie knives and you had, let's say, 30, 40 hours of training with the Bowie knives, and you had some agility, it's very hard to train, for me, to teach somebody how to use knives if they didn't have at least 6 months of martial arts training, some type of karate or kung fu, because they don't know how to use their feet for this. They could stab themselves, slash themselves. You need to have footwork and stuff and coordination. I wouldn't know how to do it. With a boxer, I couldn't do it. A wrestler, no, it'd have to be karate or kung fu. That's me to teach them how to do it. But if they did have the training and then they did that, there would be probably no more than 2 people in the world that could take the knives away from them, if even any of them. I don't even think there'd be anybody. I'd show it to him and would, because while the guy, you got two knives, okay, so you don't have two hold alley. One's back and one's forward, right? How the heck does the guy attack both of them at the same time like that when you're moving and this is moving? You can't. He can't. He's dead in the water. He goes after one knife, he gets the other one, loses his arm. I mean, the guy can play games and he could try to do a stop kick on your knee, but the knife out here comes down and he loses his foot, or he gets it cut up real bad. Or if he goes for the other leg, the same thing. Or he goes for the knee and you pivot and then you slash his throat. It doesn't work. It works on YouTube, it works on television, but I spent many, many, many years of my life with this martial arts, and it doesn't work in reality. It's a loser. You can't really do it. A guy opens up a 4-inch knife or a switchblade, and he's got one 4-inch knife, and you've gone to 8 or 10 years of martial arts school. Can you get rid of them? Can you take care of this? You should be able to, but you might get cut, but you should be able to. Okay? But there's a lot of things that they don't teach in martial arts school, like take your hat off, like hit the guy's knife with your hat, try to catch the guy's knife in your hat. They don't teach that. But they teach it in Europe, in Italy especially, they teach that. Or you have a nice jacket on. Right away, take the jacket off. You could wrap it around your arm. It's just thick. You're going to be, unless the guy has a big sword, even then, he ain't getting through the jacket to cut you. That's not realistic if he's got a knife, right? You could also use the jacket like a bullfighter with the cape, and you could try to throw the jacket over his arm and pull, and then smack him in the eyes or the nose or something, or you could try to get it over his head and then punch his hand and try to get the knife to come out or something like that. So they teach, how to use the hat, which is good. What, you just flick the guy in the eye with the hat. What is he going to do? It's this hat I got on tight, but if I was, you can just, get it off really quick, right? Some people take a hat and in the back they'll put a little pocket in. There's idiots that sell these things too. And in that little pocket you can put a bunch of nuts and bolts in there. And then you come off and you hit the guy and you go, what happened? But now in modern law you're using a blackjack. But if it's nothing in there, it's just a hat. There's no blackjack. You just got a hat. You hit someone with a hat. You hit him with a hat. What are you gonna do? You're gonna go assault with a hat. Section 359 of Code number 27.245, the fedora law clause. The fedora hat. You hit someone with a fedora hat, you're gonna blah blah blah. There used to be a really good Western show on called Yancey Derringer, and this guy wore the New Orleans style cowboy hat, kind of flat and low brim, and he would have a Derringer in there, in a little clip holster, and he'd whip it out and shoot people, There's no cop that's sane that's not going to look in your hat if they're searching you. Now you can maybe fool the guy with a razor blade in the lining here. He may not pick it up, but you might be able to manipulate your hat to make a slice here so the razor blade goes in the brim or something like that, and then whip out a razor blade, But what are you going to do with a razor blade? I wouldn't bother with a razor blade. I'd rather punch somebody. What am I going to do with a razor blade? I'd rather punch him. It's detrimental to me to use a razor. I wouldn't want it. A 4-inch knife, yeah, I can do some real damage. A 2-inch blade knife, I can do real damage with. But that's about what you need. You need about 2-inch, and that's not ideal. Ideal is a 12-inch long blade Bowie. 2 Bowie knives, you could prevail over a sword fighter. He's got one sword, you got two buoys. If you know what you're doing, if I trained the person, they're probably going to win 90% of the time, or most of the time. If a guy's a great swordsman, he's going to give you a lot of problem. But the idea is, if you're going to use a knife, you use two. Real knife fighters carry at least two knives, usually three or four. They'll put them in pocket clips. They'll put them behind the neck so they could come out like that. They'll put them inside the belt where you can't really see them. They have different places they'll keep them. The idea is, if you're being pinned or pressed up close in a fight, your hand will be able to reach one of them. So you want to have knives near both hands, so in case one hand is tied up, the other one will get it out. So they carry multiple knives, okay? That's because they understand knife fighting. And a real knife fighter isn't going to show you he has the knife. He's going to try to hide it and you're not going to know he has the knife until he gets you. Now, with a 10 or 12-inch Bowie knife, that's not going to happen. But with a 3 or 4-inch blade folding knife, it'll happen. Yeah. They'll keep it concealed from you, and the next thing you know, you're being slashed or stabbed. That's how they're trained, okay? But again, these guys are generally using one. The Filipino knife fighter is normally using one blade. They don't use two. They just don't get trained that way. Okay? I don't think the martial arts schools really teach the true martial arts. You'd have to find somebody that really has been taught the real stuff. But if you found somebody that was taught the real stuff, you would find that they're working on maybe 6 or 8 different moves, that's it. And maybe 10 or 12 maximum. And they're not going to be strict, hard to learn moves, and they're not going to be doing stupid things like this and this. It's going to be just open hand. Now, open hand, you got to be careful with judo jiu-jitsu guys, because they'll try to grab your fingers. So sometimes this is better. Then they can't do nothing to you. They can try to grab your hand, doesn't do anything. Aikido, judo, jiu-jitsu guy may try to work on your fingers, so just 2 fists can be good. But again, it depends what you're loading, what you're holding. If I had 2 4-ounce folding knives, I'd go against a guy that spent 50 years as a 9th degree black belt, and I would say the time of the fight would be 30 seconds maximum. He'd be ready for the emergency room. I would attack his hands and his feet first, and then he's helpless. If you're in a knife fight, if you use a knife to defend yourself against somebody that, if you're a woman trying to rape you or rob you, you can use your knife against them, and you slash him, and then if you disable him, like you cut his leg, a nice 6 or 8 inch cut that's 1 inch deep, and he can't walk, and then you cut an arm and he can't use his arm, and then his other arm, and then you go in and start plunging it into his chest, they'll hit you for murder. The fact that he was going to hurt you and bang your head open, and they don't care about that. Once you disable them, what they want to see you do is run away and call the police. If you disable them and then plunge them, I remember stories, guys had a garage of some sort, was getting robbed repeatedly. Now, this happens a lot. Some junkie robs a garage and gets tools and different things he could sell. You can drag a lot of expensive tools out of there, and you can make yourself some money, And he kept going back. Not every day, he'd go back a week later and do it again, because the guy was replacing the tools to continue staying in business. So then finally the guy decided to sleep in the store. He got a cot, with a bed and a blanket, and he would go in the store and go to sleep at night, and he heard them breaking in, right? So it was a Beretta. It was a high capacity Beretta, probably 15, 16 shots, something like that. And the guy came in, it was a 9mm, and he shot the guy 12 times with the 9mm. They didn't get him in jail, but the prosecutor was trying to find out why the guy shot 12 times. See, if the guy was stupid and he said, because I wanted to make sure I killed him, oh, you can go to jail for that. You're allowed to shoot him enough times to diminish the threat, where he's no threat to you anymore. Then you got to stop. So the prosecutor was trying to, the guy was probably saying, well, I after 12 shots, I still have more bullets, but he appeared to not be in any condition to fight me, to hurt me anymore, so the threat was removed, and I stopped shooting. Then the prosecutor can't do much to you. If you say, I wasn't stopping till I killed him, you can get aggravated assault, manslaughter, all kinds of charges against you. See, that's how stupid they are. It was the thing in San Francisco. People in San Francisco like riding bikes for exercise, right? Riding a bike in San Francisco in the daytime or in the early evening with all the traffic and people in a hurry to get home and stuff like that is rather dangerous. Okay, people on bikes get hit. Okay, it happens. So there was a story, and it went like this. A guy was out riding his bike at, I don't know, it was around midnight or something like that, or even early, I don't know, in the middle of the night. He went out and he took his bike out. He had one of those, $2,000 bikes, and he would go on a nice, probably a 30-minute ride at high speed around San Francisco. Now, there was plenty of street lights in San Francisco, so you didn't have to worry about the dark that much, but you could put a light on your bike. And there's not that much traffic out during the week, right? So he was stopped. I remember the street. It was near, I believe, Van Ness Avenue. He was on a large street, and he had to stop at the other street was like, 6 lanes of traffic or something like that, 3 and 3, and he couldn't just ride through the light. If the cops caught him, they'd give him a ticket. So he was waiting for the light, and some kids came at him. The gang of kids were there, a group of kids, and they saw an expensive bike. It's late at night. There's no cops around. They figured they'd just go over there and throw the guy off the bike and take the bike away and punch him a couple of times for effect, right? So they came over, and the guy pulled his 9mm Beretta out and shot several of them. And then the light changed and he pedaled away. Boom, 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 Well, was the guy justified? I think so. So what did the district attorney do? The district attorney was making announcements to the person that, defended themselves, he probably said, I don't know if he said, against the assault at this and this location last night. Would you please contact us? We would like you to come in and give us a statement, right? Well, the chances are tremendous they would have charged them with homicide, manslaughter, murder, something like that. The guy never said anything to them, never came in. They never got anywhere with the bullets. Probably the spent shell casings were laying on the floor, the guy probably wasn't able to lay his bicycle down, walk around, look for them, and pick them up. See, that's one of the advantages of using a revolver. You don't get as many shots, but you don't have to run around picking up shell casings. Shell casings can have your fingerprints on them. Now, you can wipe your shell casings with some good cloth when you put them in the gun so they won't have your fingerprints. And a guy like this might have done that. Or you could just use a revolver. And, you know, back in the old days, how would the cops do it? They would have double holster. One 6-shot pistol in each shoulder holster. Now they got, or just put one gun and then switch guns and use the other gun. And you got 12 shots. So anyway, you know, you got to be careful when you defend yourself with idiot prosecutors that are looking to take the citizen defending himself that went too far. They want to put that guy or that woman in jail. There's nurses in San Francisco that carried guns that went in the hospital. They work all nights. The cops generally cut them slack. If they knew they had a gun and they had to walk to the car at 2 a.m., they cut them some slack. But if they used the gun, it'd be a problem. I knew a guy that actually used the gun in San Francisco, and it's actually a misdemeanor, so it gets they put him in jail 1 day less than a day. And that was no fun, but he was still able to own firearms. I'll be right back. But that's the kind of crap they do. So, you know, there's a set of rules you got to follow when you defend yourself. What happened with this guy, they got the 1 year in jail minus a day, was he was correctly defending himself, and the prosecutor couldn't do anything about that, but got him for carrying a concealed gun. The fact that he used the gun correctly in a self-defense situation when his life was in jeopardy was irrelevant to the fact that he was carrying a gun illegally. These are sick people. Left-wing derelicts go out, they get organized, and they go and they take these jobs. And what does it do? It helps the criminals grow, and it hurts the people. So the people had enough, and they came up with, in most states, the cops have to prove why you can't carry a gun. and then that's like a must. You know, they have to approve the permit unless they can find a reason, like criminal record, that you shouldn't have the gun. Where it used to be, you had to prove you needed the gun. So that's, I don't know how many, probably 30, 40 states now have the mandatory issue, shall issue law. And Trump's not making it, you know, he talked about if you got a permit in one place, it's good in every state. He won't do that. He says he will, but he won't. Just like he was going to give everybody $2,000 stimulus. Where is it? He's, you know, what about Obamacare in his first term? He never got rid of it. You know, he's just another one of them. Don't be fooled. He's different, but he's still just one of them. All right. So we'll see what happens with Trump and Iran. Probably today we'll know something. I mean, the reason I think Trump is playing these moron games with Iran is he wants to drag out a lot of time between the first attacks with Iran and make everything seem different, and then the next set of attack. I don't know. I don't know. He's got to know you can't make a deal with Iran. I mean, in businessman talk, it would come out, you can't make a deal with Iran, they're crazy. And Trump has to know that. I can't imagine he doesn't know that. So he's afraid of something, okay? Likely getting impeached for the War Powers Act violation. That would be a big one. Or he's worried about the weapons or something. You know, he doesn't have enough missiles, or I don't know. All right, let me get a prayer for us. So I hope you enjoyed some of this. Listen one more time. It helps the channel, and if it helps the channel, we get more viewers and I can help more people this way. If you do a thumbs up, if you put something up in the chat, anything, as long as it's nice, and you put something, if it's a video, you could write a comment, just write anything. It shows interaction and it helps promote things, okay? One of the things you have to be aware of in YouTube is if people come into the chat and they say nasty, bad things, you know, and you don't remove those posts, then they penalize you. This is what I'm told, because you're promoting, you know, evil, you know. So we're pretty diligent about that, which is good. The fact that they wrote something that was obscene and you blocked it actually helps you, because it shows interaction and it shows that you are actually doing something about it, so you're being a good citizen on the internet. Okay. So you could really help, and it's free and easy if you do that. And just a reminder, we're offerings keep us going here, okay? All right, so my Heavenly Father Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers in their households and families. I pray, well, for our households first, for our households only. I pray that we would have your strength, stamina, and endurance from you. We have from you your healing and recuperative power flowing through our body. And I pray for us and our animals and pets that we all be safe and secure, happy, healthy, and whole. I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I pray if you need work, you get a good job. I pray if you need clients and customers for your business, you find them. I pray we all have enough money and then some extra. I pray we all learn the scriptures better and know the scriptures better. I pray we all have more of the gift of faith and wisdom. Okay? And I ask of this to you, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and if you're a believer, you can agree with this. Now for some spiritual warfare. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I loose off of me and my wife and all the true believers any witchcraft or sorcery. It's all loosed off, of no value, no effect, never to return again forever. And if there's any unclean spirit in any of these people, I command it to immediately depart, never to return unto these people again forever. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this too if you're a true believer. So I would just like to reach more true believers and see what happens. All right, so I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'll be posting in the Telegram if Trump does anything definitive, and I will, if the war breaks out, I will probably do another live stream about that. Boy, we don't have that many people doing thumbs up, do we? I guess people don't even want to go that far, you know? It's an easy thing to do, and you don't want to do it. All right. Such is my life. Okay, I'm out. Thanks.